This was a little different. This was a little weird. Now we talked about the Steve Wilks, Kyle Shanahan situation, if it's even a situation, on Wednesday when Kyle felt like he threw him under the bus, and Thursday. But when we did the show Thursday, this hadn't happened. We hadn't seen this yet. Um, and it's weird. And they got time to fix it. It's not too weird as long as they don't let it get too weird. But it's someone who's covered a lot of college football press conferences. The Niners have created a college football situation for themselves. And if you haven't heard it, let's go back. Zero blitz, 16 seconds, other side of the 50. Mooney Ward has it, goes through his hands. No help. Jordan Addison touchdown. Kyle Shanahan said, yeah, Steve, we or he, hard to exactly tell, lost track of time or the situation. Anyway, this was Steve Wilks on Thursday.
To be honest with you, by the time I talk to you guys, win or lose, mentally, I'm on to the next game. And I know there's a lot of questions about the call right before the half. So I definitely want to address that before I move on to Cincinnati.
On to Cincinnati. So opens the press conference with it. Has not been asked the question. Decides we need to address this from the jump, clear the air so we can move on to other stuff, which is smart by him, right? He's been a head coach. He knows if he doesn't address it right away and then get on to other stuff, it's going to be maybe it'll be the first thing, maybe it'll be the fourth thing. So, okay, good tactic.
Cincinnati. Take full responsibility for that call. I have to do a better job in putting the guys in a better position. We have good players. I know that, and can't really press the issue, and with that, moving forward, it's my responsibility to do that. So I wish I could take it back. But again, I gotta do better. So this week, moving forward, I would say we have definitely a challenge ahead of us.
Okay, so none of that is weird, and none of it is weird. Definitely, if it's said right after the game, but he doesn't talk right after the game. Doesn't talk till Thursday, so you don't get to hear it till Thursday. So, like he said, here we are talking about something from the past, but it gets weird when you add to it because what Shanahan said before, it feels like it was required. The reason I say it's a college situation is because in college, this happens all the time. Because there's so many different places pressure comes from in college. Unlike in the NFL, where the fans sign your check, kind of, in like a really roundabout way. In college, the fans definitely directly sign your check. The boosters, who are the fans, are the ones that can sign a check, not just to keep you, but they're the ones that can sign a check to fire you. And so when things begin to bubble from beneath the surface and there's a public outcry and everybody's talking about it and the message boards are going crazy and the athletics director's phone is off the hook and now he's bugging the head coach about it. The head coach is like, we got to deal with this. I got the AD up my ass, right? Those things don't happen generally with good organizations in the NFL, at least not when it's such a small thing. What's crazy about this, the more I was thinking about this last night, I was thinking about it in bed. And maybe somebody said this already. Probably somebody has. This is a novel thought. But I was laying in bed last night thinking, this play happened barely, but less than halfway through the game. They had a whole half of a game to play after this play. This was not the end of the game, the last play. Now, it was a critical play, and to be critical of this play in a critical situation is 100% fair. But it feels like it's almost swung too far back the other way. And Shanahan was right with what he said, but he fanned the flames of this. And I wonder if he, seeing what Steve had to do yesterday, wishes he could have taken that back. I mean, there's something to be said for account. Everyone's always like pounding the table, like we got to have accountability. Go look at what's happening with USC and Alex Grinch. This has been every week since basically he showed up that there's some conversation about whether he's a good enough defensive coordinator. That's not this situation. This thing just happened. These guys were undefeated 2 weeks ago. They went to Cleveland, got beat on a missed field goal went to Minnesota, got sliced and diced. No question about it. Got to be better. But this is not some like ongoing situation that finally we need to address. That's college. That's college. So this play happens in the first half. And then they play 2 more quarters of football where mistakes are made and plays are made and crazy things happen. And you know, I don't want to rehash yesterday's show, which you can find down in the description if you want podcast form, or you can just find it on the YouTube. Like and subscribe. Brought to you by Tito's Handmade Vodka. But you know, there's this level of accountability where it's almost like a catch-22, right? All of us in the media, like we address it, be transparent, tell us the truth, all that. But we have different responsibilities than the coach does. And the main accountability that a coach has especially in pro football versus college football, but also in college football, I think the first priority the coach has is to his own team, not public transparency when it comes to matters of football, right? Not like legal matters. And like that accountability is accountability to the locker room, accountability to the players, accountability to the other coaches. Like Steve Wilks' accountability is to his defensive players, it's to the team, it's to the head coach, all of that. So is Kyle's. So for Kyle to say Wednesday, it's one thing to say he wishes he could have it back. I think it would have been great to say I had a timeout, I should have used it, which is what he did say yesterday on radio. He did say that part. So credit to him. Like, you know, I do think part of it, if I'm going to be fair to Kyle, is like you just kind of say what you're thinking, then people react to it. I do it all the time here. Like you say what you're thinking, people react to it. You're like, oh, I didn't address that part of it. I didn't know that would be a thing. Okay, let me address that part of it. Because he generally talks like this. He's been doing these press conferences Kyle has been doing these press conferences for a long time. Rarely with a coach does an issue like this come up. We're used to him kind of talking that way about players. So then he comes out and says, yeah, I should have called it, which is correct. Like, yeah, should have called it. I heard the call. I had the timeout. I should have called it. Like you probably should have, if you could do it over, you would have led with that, just so you don't put Steve in this spot. Now, that play happens in the first half. The Niners have scored 7 points at that point. They only had 2 possessions plus the possession they got when the Vikings kicked off to them after that touchdown. Then they scored 10 points in the second half. I mean, we could go through and nitpick that whole game that way. But this stuff happens all the time in college. It happens in the NFL, but it hasn't really happened here. And it's just a little weird. And maybe the relationship's fine. Maybe it's no big deal. Maybe they are both truly past it. But the fact that it played out so publicly with Shanahan's comments to the point that Wilks had to address at the beginning of his press conference, a play that happened in the first half when there was still a second half of football to play. It wasn't the last play of the game. And the ball went through Mooney Ward's hands, and Kyle heard the thing. So like Steve Wilks, I guess the point is Steve Wilks shouldn't wear this whole thing himself. And it kind of feels like he has to wear this whole thing himself, even though everybody else has addressed it already. So there really is, one way to fix it, which is just you win this week and everything kind of calms down. I think there is a practical question, like a competitive question about whether or not they play any differently this week. And I think the thing that matters here for being on to Cincinnati is, do they overcorrect in any way that affects the way they call the game on Sunday? We'll see. On one hand, it'd be disingenuous to say they've given the opposition now a tactical advantage by admitting their mistake. But the reality is, based on the history, and we had the stat the other day, Next Gen Stats said no team since 2020 has brought that many pass rushers with that little time from that position on the field. So like from a situational standpoint, no one expects you to do that anyway. So it's not like you gave some away. But like if you're Cincinnati right now in your meetings, are you thinking they're going to be really conservative? Like Are they going to blitz less this week than they've blitzed all year? Are they going to overcorrect? That's where, like, we could sit here and wonder about how they're getting along. Football is a people yell at each other every day world, so maybe it's fine. But I think Steve Wilks would rather Shanahan scream at him in the office than have Shanahan say Steve lost. He didn't say Steve lost track. He just made it seem maybe he was saying we lost track of the situation, which, we always give coaches or players a hard time when they say nothing except for I got to be better, but they say it for a reason. So yeah, we got to see. Let's watch this week and see this team. As Nick Bosa said the other day, historically a 4-man pressure team, but they're always aggressive in style, one way or the like. Whatever they do, it's done aggressively, and that is a testament to the players. It is a testament to the coordinators. One thing we almost never talk about in pro football that is always a college football discussion. If things aren't going well, and the coach is on the field, like, we got to move him to the booth. And if the coach is in the booth, like, we got to move him to the field. Where it normally happens, offensive coaches usually like to start on the field, and then the head coach is like, you got to go to the booth, man. I know you like being down here. Defensive coaches like to start in the booth. And then when things are going bad on defense, which is not like this. Like, usually what's happening in college is they're up in the booth and, like, their team's not tackling. So, like, the coordinator's like, I got to get on the field. I got to look my guys in the eye. That's usually the way it goes. Offensive coordinators want to be on the field. They get sent to the booth. Defensive coordinators want to be in the booth. They get brought down to the field. This is NFL. That's usually not a discussion here. And that I don't think will be a discussion with I don't think it'll be a discussion with Steve Wilks. But let's see. Let's see this week if they overcorrect. Because there is a world where you look at that play and Mooney Ward holds on to the ball. And you go, what a ballsy call. All out. Nobody does it. Steve Wilks went against the book. But you know what? Forget those analytics. Sometimes you got to go with your gut. This man knows his team, and this man is willing to put it on the line in the biggest moments. And if you're not willing to do that, you don't have the DNA to be a champion anyway. Wow. He put trust in his players. That's why you pay a number one corner. That's why you pay Mooney Ward. So you can put him on an island to make a play. It's not that hard. That's where you judge results instead of process. And again, you could argue the process in that spot. And the truth of the matter is, it's easy to concoct that. The juice is not worth the squeeze on that one, right? The risk is not worth. And that's the point. Even if he picks it off, you go, guys, let's review this. None of us are talking about it. But even if Mooney Ward picks that ball off, there should be an internal meeting of, was that worth the risk? I know we got to pick. Was that worth the risk, right? Would Shanahan have done that if Mooney Ward picked the ball off? Knock, knock, knock. Steve, no one's going to ask us about this, but let's just talk about this. I know it worked this time, but we probably shouldn't do it again because it wasn't worth the risk. On the stream, let's get to some comments. Kyle initially deflected after the game, says coaches talk about decisions. Fans and media escalated it because it was such a dumb decision. Then Kyle was honest and the story grew. This goes back to first responsibility team. Love it. And this is one of the reasons I enjoy being around the Kyle Shanahan 49ers. A, I think he's one of the best coaches in the league. B, he says stuff. And not like he's not trying to get, clips. But he's transparent, and that's great. And because he is, we all learn more stuff because he says stuff. But just because we're talking about it doesn't mean you got to talk about it. Again, that's the difference mostly between the NFL, especially when you have all the equity, right? Which Shanahan has. This is also a thing that we're doing here. Like, as long as it's not a thing between those two, then it's not a thing. Like, that is the important part too. Nobody talks about this if they win Sunday. If they win, if they win this coming Sunday. Also, if they'd won that Monday, no one's talking about this. Got away with one. Yeah, probably. Or Kyle says, wouldn't do that again. And Steve's like, yeah, wouldn't do that again. Jesse, I don't know. Even a high school coach calls a zero blitz in that situation. Players would look at him weird. Did you guys see the video yesterday that went viral? It's like, so it was like JV football, and there's like a kid lined up, kind of attached. I don't know if he's a tight end, but kind of like imagine off the line, like H-back type spot. And the quarterback's under center, and he keeps looking at him. This is like the high school. This is like the tape from the bleachers, you know. And the quarterback keeps like stomping his leg, and he wants him to go in motion, and keeps looking at him and stomping the leg and stuff. And the kid that's lined up at H freaks and just runs a route, and everyone else, 21 other guys, just standing there like, "What is this dude doing? Offensive offsides." Very bizarre. Kyle has never apologized in public for a bad play call. Yeah, I mean, if we go back, Kyle addressed it because the media and the fans. I mean, what about, we talked about this yesterday, so I'm not going to rehash. But what about the hit on Purdy in the playoffs, one-on-one with Hassan Reddick? I wonder if he said the same thing about weird coverage decisions like D'Amico on a Monday night versus the Packers in 2021. He had Warner playing close, and Devontae got the catch to win the game. Yeah, I mean, good question. I don't recall. If they lose, it amplifies. I mean, yeah, also depends, right? Like if they somehow lose this game, if you lose this game 17-14, if you're getting, you know what it is really? It's those 10-play can't get off the field on third downs. They got to get third down stops this week. And you know what? Joe Burrow's good, but with this Bengals offensive line, maybe it lands this week. And then it's, hey, we turned up the heat. We didn't take our foot off the gas, and it paid off. Comment. Bozzy Man. No coordinator worth their salt would be in their feelings if they were publicly held accountable for their performance. If they're in their feelings, they're a snowflake who needs to go. Yeah, look, Steve Wilks has done a lot of this stuff. I don't think he's in his feelings. You could argue, Kyle could say, I'm just keeping it real. Steve would go, yeah, man, keep it real. Comment. Kind of sucks for Kyle's offense, Adrian. Kind of sucks for Kyle's offense to not score past 17 in 2 weeks with the weapons he has. Holding the Vikings to 22 was a winnable game still. Definitely. Now, as 22 does not exactly indicate how the defense played that day. Kirk Cousins had a prolific passing day. And on, the big downs, the third downs, the Niners didn't have a lot of success. Now, the bend but don't break red zone stuff, like it worked. They were good there. Partly, Minnesota missed at least one open touchdown that turned into a field goal. Missed an extra point. But yeah, I mean, it's true. 22 is, if we had said before the game, if I'd said to you, if you'd said to me, 22 questions, 22 points, not 22 questions, 22 points, you would have taken that before the game. Kyle was asked directly about the blitz. What's he supposed to say? I mean, I would just say, you know what? Bad call by Steve. But I'm on the headset. I heard the call. We had a timeout. And he said this yesterday. He did. Like, I'm giving him credit. He said it. You don't have to say everything. That's part of what we in the media, not we, but we in the media do, is like, you say one thing and you're not allowed to add the addendum to it, right? And of course you are. He said that yesterday. So it got better. But part of being the head coach is you know that the first way you say it either stops or continues the conversation. And in this case, it continued the conversation. And Kyle is generally excellent at that, I think, at walking the line between not accelerating any controversies, but also, giving you a little something. Yeah, he said that yesterday on KNBR. I know. But again, it got to the point where Steve had to. It's one thing if the media asked Steve, but it had become big enough that Steve had to start his press conference unprompted with it. It's not weird that Steve got asked that had to address it if he'd been asked it. But the fact that it had become such a story that he just decided to address it off the top, that is what to me was a little different about it all. That's what was different. But they're in good position. They're at home. They play the Bengals. They still got good players. What you are at the beginning of the year is not what you are in the middle of the year. It's not what you are at the end of the year. Just like a game, adjustments are made. So, to me, it's not red alarm. I think Steve's got he's got time to fix this thing. But, the uncomfortable part is that the bye comes after this Bengals game. And the uncomfortable part is that you'd lost the Browns game the week. If you'd won the Browns game, this doesn't feel quite as dramatic. But they were riding so high, and now it's turned the other direction so quickly that it creates a little stress. Do you think the Niners players are buying into Wilks' system? Well, he adjusted a little of their system, but I don't know. I mean, they're playing hard. But the comment from Bosa the other day of we're a little different this year. You never know with Nick. He doesn't generally talk as like in a passive way. So it could have just been that simple. We're different this year. Matter of fact, we got to be better. We're different this year. Not matter of fact, like kind of indicating something, but because we're not just a 4-man pressure team. But they're also, here's the other thing, they're not as talented on the opposite edge from Bosa as they have been before. So that's, when he says he's not just saying Steve, it's hard to know, but he's not just saying Steve calls a different game. He's saying the group of players is different. Now we just added Randy Gregory, so let's see what we become, right? Like that's how you're kind of saying it. But this is why we're talking about, do they need to add a pass rusher? Because they're also different. Drake Jackson had 3 sacks in the first game. I remember seeing him tell Larry Krueger in a video Larry posted in the locker room with Drake, like Drake said, like, I'm not playing as well as I need to. And Larry's like, well, you had 3 sacks. Maybe Drake should have listened to Drake Jackson. He was onto something. Thomas, it doesn't indicate how they played, but the week before we heard, read this in the tone of nasally voice nerd, Purdy put him in a situation to win. D put turn in position to win twice. Didn't feel like I quite delivered what that message was supposed to be there, Thomas, but it's why I always say, the team that wins the championship in the championship game, and even over the course of the season, there's so much, people hate when you use the word luck, but luck involved. And not that this is about luck, but there's just things go wrong every single game. Every single game, the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinators both make calls they wish they could have back. Players make mistakes, plays they should have made. Humans doing human things. That's what makes it all so crazy, is that you can't watch one play and go, from that play, I know what happened today, because things swing back and forth all the time. So they've both games with kind of these swing games, right? They've played in how many swing games have they really played in this year? Last week, swing game L. The week before, swing game L. When I say swing game, I mean a game that was really in the balance in the fourth quarter, or at least like, on the line. So, maybe they're all been runaway games. You got to win these games. Find a way. And it's sometimes you win a game because of something that happened in the second quarter, but you don't get to stop the game after the second quarter. You still have to do the stuff in the third and the fourth quarter that won you the game. Sometimes you lose a game in part because of something that happened actually, every time you win or lose a game, it happened in part because of something that happened in the second quarter. Every single time. Every single time you win or lose a game, there was something in the second quarter that changed that game, for better or worse. It's kind of weird. Kyle and John have blown the season bringing this guy in. We're not. I don't think we know that yet. I've watched, but I mean that's a prediction, so I'll put you on the record for that, Steve-O. I've watched about every snap the last few seasons. Guys have been constantly wide ass open like Monday Night Football. This defense every snap the last few seasons. Oh, guys have not been constantly wide. Yeah, there was a lot of WAO. I do think part of that was Cousins. I do think part of that was Cousins. Now, the feeling I get from the pass rush is based on Bosa's pressure numbers not leading to sacks is that if they covered a little longer, he'd get home. Like that's kind of if you go back to something Bosa said leading up to this game, talking about like the phases of the defense. One thing he said is they lock it up on the back end, then we got time to get to the quarterback. And yeah, I mean that's why we're also talking about should they get a cornerback, right? Before the trade deadline. So third in the league in points per game. Yeah, they are still a top ranked defense in many measures. What are they in third down defense? Third down defense, the 49ers are 21st. 61% against 62% against the Vikings, 39% against the Browns, 41. Oh no, that was just the last. Sorry. I got the last 3 games is 40%, 40% overall, 61. Last year, the 49ers were 38.7% third down defense. This year, they're 40.86, 38.7. Last year's number would be good for 15th this year. So not a dramatic change there. But they were bad last week. We're like I said the other day, we're also reacting to one of the best quarterback performances that we'll see this year. Now, part of that is you played the defense against the guy, but I do think a big element to what happened was that Kirk Cousins knew what to do and could do it. I do think that was a big part of what happened on Monday night. So Ben, offense made life easy on the defense for the first 5 weeks. Turned teams one-dimensional and dominated time of possession. Yeah, a lot of cliches work. I don't want to be cliche. Team game, field position, control, but it was hard. It was hard the other day. I mean, if the Niners had effectively run the ball, they would have had even less possessions probably. I guess they would have kept their defense off the field, which would have helped them because the defense couldn't get off the field. Can't expect to score 30 plus every game. That's a fact, right? Which is what they were doing every week. Kyle told Wilks what to do this week. We're going to be fine. Oh, okay. Kyle's a defensive coordinator. Kyle's calling the defense then? I'd prefer my defensive coordinator calls the defense. He knows defense. Like, if Kyle wants to call both, I'd be all for seeing how that plays out. McCaffrey first fumble really killed the game. Yeah. Why aren't we grilling McCaffrey about it? But it's true. That was a big moment. But there's lots of big moments. Yeah. Dan, fact is D-line isn't performing. The effectiveness of the secondary is predicated and built on a consuming pass rush that the Niners haven't had. I mean, that's been their strength, right? It has not been good coverage leads to great pass rush generally with this group. Lockdown corners lead to time. It's been the opposite. It's been elite pass rush, helps the corners out, helps the DBs out. How do you not hammer the over on Chase receptions? What is the number on Jamar Chase? Ooh, let me check out Prize Picks. Yeah, let's check out. Let's see, is that up? But that's not, no, I don't want to get. Let's see here. I got to update the app. All right, never mind. Above or below Prize Picks. What is the ham? What is that? It's the ad runs in the podcast, but yeah, Seattle. I'm not gonna get. I don't want to sit here just looking at you guys. I guess you're looking at me. Anyway, yeah, Price Picks is good. We got the promo code. Allowing runs up the middle through 7 straight weeks playing hero ball and losing momentum has shifted the pendulum. Allowing runs up the middle through 7 straight weeks playing hero ball. I mean, that was, the Mooney Ward play was kind of hero ball, right? I'm going to get this interception. I'm going to return it. That's a good call on that. Can't do Price Picks? No. I don't know what state are you in? All right. That's Friday. Thanks for hanging today. Thanks for jumping in. Hit that like button if you're here. Like button means like Tito's Handmade Vodka. You're a sponsor of the show. When you hit that like button, more people see the video. That helps the channel grow. When you subscribe to the channel, that also helps the channel. That is the ultimate goal, right? Get more subs. So get in there and sub a little bit. We appreciate it. And yeah, we'll be back soon. Thanks for hanging. Later, everybody.